More Hubs that Provoke. Part 5. These are my views on some of the issues that are always current in our society. They may not be fully and unquestionably right, nor will they be a farce, and completely devoid of merit. Author Roy T. James. Chapter 14. What help? The past. What use? The past. What lesson can we learn from our past, apply to the present, and make the prospects bright? I think there is a simple answer. Locate contradictions and remove them. In fact, this is how we repair a machine, a device or a system. Where any of its physical or operating or whatever parameters do not correspond to one another in the desired manner, we identify a nonconformity. We investigate it further to locate the culprit, and act as necessary to bring back the correspondence. I have been writing about the contradictions that are always in existence in everything related to human, and by now I am sure there is nothing without it. Many of these are described in my book, The Hubs That Provoke, and some of these in all my books. And I have also noted, in one book, The Unsure Male, how humans are benefiting from these errors. And of course, the benefit is the one that is making sure that such errors continue. How to locate contradictions. A direct outcome of all this is the lifestyle we have come to follow, where we are also making it a permanent one, with the future generations having few options but to continue with the same lifestyle. But the lifestyle is also causing severe stress on the environment, a burden, much more than all the other forms of life combined. I know, at present the whole mankind is seized of this situation. I feel our lifestyle originates in our heads, and we thought this befits us the best. So, we need to revisit thinking, the one which led to such a self-destructive lifestyle. Contradictions originate in our minds. I think we are not entirely right, nor wrong, when we hold thinking as something solely different from action. In fact, we can see thinking, perhaps as another form itself, of action. Just as action essentially is body locomotion, thinking can become locomotion of the mind, each of which may be governed by its own rules. Rather, the qualitative and quantitative aspects of the relationship between the different entities that take part in this, where such a relationship may be natural or unnatural, conceptual or real, or permanent or fleeting. But the reality is far different. Imagine our children growing up unwedded. They would have had to learn to walk, run, and all other things on their own, mostly by sheer experimenting. In that process, they would have encountered many instances of danger, and also the style or way of doing all this would not have been the optimum, though suited best to each one. As they grow up, a society would have been evolved, with conflicting movements and manoeuvres that effectively make the society a burden to the race as a whole. I think this is what is happening now, as far as thinking go. On top of this, we continue to celebrate all the random thoughts, proclaiming with gusto that human society is defined as, and one cannot come across a different view, however hard is the try, and are nurtured by our lifestyle. In fact, we are already made this into a formal way of life. Each of us brandish one's own unique reactions to events and occurrences, where such reactions define, or does not oppose much, one's approach to life. Otherwise, we tend to go with the flow, the approach being one greatly influenced by the education one happens to go through. It is natural that such a way of life will continue to flourish if education follows a predictable pattern, and at present it is so, making it rather impossible to think of a deviation to it. How to go about? Well, what should we do now? We need to reinvent the wheel. Rather, reinvent reinventing itself, by redefining the activities that goes behind it. I now take up those very ones, which are nothing but action and thought. We can begin by viewing thinking as another form of action. Just as action essentially is body locomotion, thinking can become locomotion of the mind. The rules, rather the particularities of a relationship between the natural and unnatural entities that can be of influence here, shall be more or less the same for both. A society with commotions aplenty. How? In fact, one's approach to life, which has the single greatest part to play in one's ups and downs, is largely decided by the pattern of education one happens to have gone through. This is also easily recognizable in our actions, where the efforts to contain its repercussions need to follow every action. That is so, since most of us are taught in a similar manner, where we learn only the abstract idea of things in our younger days, when we act most, and understand the significance of its constituent parts much later in life, when we hardly act. As a result of which, when we are in a relatively unstable youth, we deal with the active whole that could be incendiary, and when we turn stable in our life, we look at the inactive part that make up the whole. Naturally, this has led to an unbalanced society, one with an unstable root. A society that is in perpetual commotion, however worthy the fruits that may come out. What can end commotions? Obviously, the answer would be to go for the roots of the commotion, where we would in all probabilities be noting that the curiosity of the young is constantly grappling with things that call for greater maturity and understanding, whereas the old, constantly engaging with anything and everything in its component parts, where there always is a possibility of rearrangement, silently causes an ambience of commotion. Thus, one can say, the roots of the restless nature of human society lies here, in this incompatibility, which might tell us to let the young ones worry about things only in its nuts and bolts, and to let the old revel in their ability to gamble with the whole, thinking fast and slow. In fact, what the young will now be busy with, and what engages the old, can be thought of as thinking fast and thinking slow, respectively, as described by Daniel Kahneman in the bestseller Thinking Fast and Slow, which shall be bringing in certain changes. How the past can be turned into a good future. Firstly, nothing will get overlooked, nor things will get huddled, leading to instances of commotion. See, the young, thinking fast, can react instantly to each and every event, the bubbling energy of the youth being put to good use, and the elders can take their time and respond, whether in agreement or otherwise, their knowledge and experience getting duly recognized. When we continue to live thus, we also stand to acquire a new lifestyle for ourselves, and that will start the end of all contradictions, and also acting as a recipe for a good future, for human race, for Earth, and all that is beyond. Chapter 15. Why should there be unrest? Should we be living with unrest? Unrest, in fact, is nothing special. These are our normal transactions, which are of a very high intensity and rate. I could easily notice that, since the earliest days of life, frequent occurrence of this has more or less become a permanent feature of our world. Many a time it has resulted in wars and other skirmishes, and quite often, in building empires. Also, all our glories, like explorations, discoveries and inventions, can't be seen to be independent of its influence. However, instead of recognizing this simple fact, we have been attributing this turmoil to an unknown force. Sometimes we see this as a result of our sinful life. Sometimes, which happens more often, we feel these are caused by forces external to us, and which become the villain in one's depiction of life. Thus, for one who is left-leaning, this unrest is due to class struggle and capital is the villain. For a capitalist, however, it is caused by insufficient production, the villain becoming the low productivity of labour, or its main cause, the labour unions. Also, any of the other common culprits of social disharmony like interreligious rivalry, caste oppression, male chauvinism or lack of faith in God could become the bad guy for those disposed to other viewpoints. We are making two mistakes. We are not examining the root cause, the propensity to resort to transactions of the extremes. We are compounding it by directing our efforts to the apparent cause, capital, religion or chauvinism, which, even though is present in every society, need not necessarily affect its state of health. Thus, beliefs, or the propensity to revel, as we adhere stronger there, makes the human society a turbulent one. But, if that is so, we should have been feeling unrest everywhere in our life, in more or less equal proportion. Yes, some kind of unrest happens everywhere, which settles promptly and quietly, as another facet of the current lifestyle we follow. Changes in politics, fashion, local customs, and many other rearrangements are there in our society, happening at all times, which individually or collectively absorb the commotion caused. Normally changes happen without anybody noticing it as such. However, there is one exception: the abstract areas corresponding to the beliefs each society entertain. Such entities can be seen to successful in remaining active, whatever be the changes a society may face. If and when a change becomes inevitable, say due to an invention, or appreciation of such an entity gets modified, so as to accommodate the original idea of the entity unscathed, and changes occurring in all the other areas get appropriated to suit whatever are the abstract notions extant in that area. Thus, the consequences of almost every event, whether desirable or otherwise, tends to get distributed over and over, in the natural course of events itself, which causes the subdued unrest also to get reinstated, at each such step. Such redistribution do exist everywhere in the world. It is only over time, all things settle, the society, say wise men, leaders, etc., now invent a totally new reason for every instance of unrest, prescribing imaginative solutions. Every such solution having the potential to raise unrest afresh, the unrest escalates, or spreads, or both. Thus, instead of getting tapered down while in repeated redistribution, it turns into an ambience of agitation, and becomes a staple element of human society. I therefore feel, an effective way to deal with unrest is to attack the force that nurtures the unrest, which is nothing but the aggregate of all the abstract notions extant in a society. I know, this is easier said than done, but it is so only when we take such notions as unchangeable elements. We thus come to a simple answer, as far as making a human society that is always at ease. Be flexible, especially with the abstract tenets, every society is abundant with. Chapter 16. Why should there be worry? Should there be worry? There exists scope for re-examining all that is associated, primarily, only with human life, for the reason that the origins of many of those are shrouded in obscure beliefs. Those beliefs that are unable to withstand the forces of time and tide do get reviewed sometimes. The collection of all such reviews, where each one has the potential to spark many new reviews, is what we acknowledge as knowledge, say as science, humanities, etc., depending on repeatability of the findings of the review. But the other beliefs, a brute majority, continue to play havoc, since we all turn a blind eye to it. My blog entry, Is Human a Complex Life?, explores this, and finds that we humans, rather than looking for an answer to this, close their eyes to this brute majority, and are merely relaxing, as they are also taking efforts to make themselves more and more comfortable in the existing circumstances. They continue to remain blind to this issue. On top of it, saying, life is beyond comprehension, they happily ignore warning signs or other inputs, unless there is reason not to do so. To counter this, human race needs to go back to the plotting table, and come up with fresh ideas about how to live, and originate a new set of priorities that form human nature. https://hubpages.com/education/origin of human nature. Let me start the ball rolling by having a close look at one significant element of human nature, worry, something widely accepted as universal. Is it needed? The prevailing response seems to be a firm no, whether from common people, academic luminaries, or from professional psychologists. But I feel otherwise. If something is associated with a life, it should be serving a purpose clearly related to the particular life, and worry is a universal phenomenon associated with humans. Hence, it should be serving something essential for the whole race, in addition to the consequences we presently entertain, whether predictable or unpredictable, welcome or unwelcome. Now, let us ask afresh, what exactly is worry? To answer it, I think, we need to examine which human want is being met by worry, or what purpose it is meeting. What use worry is of? A plausible reply is, I think, worry originated as a mental attempt, or a reminder to it, to confront, or avoid, a threat. Where the threat could be a real one, or one that has become one as a result of the current priorities each society entertain. Just as happiness would have originated as a reminder to continue with whatever affair is leading to the current instance of relaxed feeling or contentment, it is a vital part of survival, or successful conduct of the entity one is currently engaged in. Though presently programmed automation takes care of much of such needs, for the early humans, it surely would have been of utmost importance. For example, one worried about a danger in hiding, or an impending storm, would have been moving around better equipped and with greater care. And if, say, a wild animal appeared, since worry would have been keeping them well geared, and their reflexes sharp, quite appropriate would have been the steps that followed. People with such a genetic makeup have a greater chance of survival, making worry and happiness more widespread as generations go. So, effectively, worry is nothing but a reminder, of course, one of great significance. What can it do for us? In that case, worry, or everything unpleasant, as well as those pleasant, deserve to be seen as life-saving institutions. Clearly, pleasant experiences add to our longevity, we all know. The unpleasant ones also do it, by leading us to suppress, or avoid, things that adversely affect the same. This perhaps is the original reason, both for happiness and unhappiness. Say I see someone close to me die. If I'm unhappy, I am likely to be looking for the reasons for the death, and take actions to counter it or stay away from the same. Just as this, when I am happy with something, I will feel encouraged to be associated more with it, both of which, adding to my state of bliss and longevity. But, what is the reality? However, over time, worry would have got cemented as a part of our basic character, each generation celebrating it as a unique facet of the human, where, rather than acting as a signal, and perhaps as a life-saving measure, worry takes position as a part of the default ambience the human race show at all times. As I have elaborated in my hub https://hubpages.com/politics/how to make human society peaceful, we continue to cling on to worry, though irrelevant in the new world. Hence we always need to come up with a good reason to worry. Naturally, it became the prime route we people took for wasting time, for the reasons described in my book, The Unsure Male. In fact, overindulgence in whatever is one's current interest is a favourite activity for humans. Worry is a fit candidate here, since one is less likely to feel fed up of it, unlike pleasurable feelings. Thus it became omnipresent, as far as human life go, and it monopolized one's emotional makeup, and it started to displace many helpful emotions, becoming a threat to longevity. Is worry a virtue? The original idea of worry as a subtle reminder does not accord the status of a virtue to it, since one need not engage with it for no reason. Also, no instance of such reminders shall go unattended. Consequently, there may not be any orphan instances of worry to keep one engaged, an essential attribute of a virtue. A virtue is one in which one can engage for no reason and feel happy. But in reality, it isn't so. We worry whether a reason exists for it or not. The abstractions associated with human life, like duty, honour, etc., are of great use here. It can produce a reason for worry out of nothing, and it made worry the best medium for wasting time. Thus, humans succeeded in making a virtue out of necessity, though the original reason for institution of the same would have been getting lost on the way. As generations go by, worry continues to remain an integral part of the human, thanks to the persistent nature of all things irrational, and the fleeting nature of everything rational, where even the best of theories will sway out the weakest opposition from another one, which is understandable, for, even in this age of language and writing, it is not very easy to get rid of a crazy or harmful idea from the past or prevent genuine, helpful ones from fading to oblivion, that too, notwithstanding the best efforts in record-keeping. I think this needs an explanation. Things rational are highly volatile, while those irrational remain forever. This is the main observation that led me to my theory of the unsure male, in which I found that the primary motivation for dealing with things, both rational and irrational, is the urge to occupy oneself. For further study of things rational can lead to new revelations and more things to ponder, while a deep foray into things irrational could render it useful no more, by revealing its true nature or insignificance. Why has it engulfed us? As we continued to overcome the dangers the earlier days posed, every success effectively rendered ineffective at least one avenue for worrying. However, the propensity to worry remained unabated, which had to now look for new outlets. As a result, worry has become a part of everything humans do. To ensure this, wherever there is no natural scope for worry, we are constantly instituting abstract values. Thus worry can easily fit in whatever we do. In fact, no other form of life is affected by it. Even if we take certain peculiar expressions seen among other species as those of anguish, there is no instance of such expressions causing disruption to any activity of life. What can we do? That is, humans succeeded in making a virtue out of necessity. Though the original reason for institution of the same would have been getting lost on the way, as generations go by, worry continues to remain an integral part of the human, thanks to the persistent nature of all things irrational, and the fleeting nature of everything rational, where even the best of theories will sway out the weakest opposition from another one, which is understandable, for, even in this age of language and writing, it is not very easy to get rid of a crazy or harmful idea from the past or prevent genuine, helpful ones from fading to oblivion, that too, notwithstanding the best efforts in record-keeping. I think this needs an explanation. Things rational are highly volatile, while those irrational remain forever. This is the main observation that led me to my theory of the unsure male, in which I found that the primary motivation for dealing with things, both rational and irrational, is the urge to occupy oneself. For further study of things rational can lead to new revelations and more things to ponder, while a deep foray into things irrational could render it useful no more, by revealing its true nature, or insignificance. We only need to keep in mind that there will be worry, as long as we take worry as something worrisome. Once we start considering as a useful input, worry will also wane like a happy feeling or sentiment, since as time goes by, or when circumstances change, its impact or utility will diminish. About the author. He has taken to writing on retirement from Indian Navy in 2013 after a lengthy career, during which he had the good luck to come across his colleagues, subordinates and superiors, a real, wide cross-section of India, and quite a bit of the rest of the world. Every second person, during those years, that one had to do business with, thus being from entirely different backgrounds and consequently exposing a kaleidoscopic view of society, he couldn't but reflect on human transactions in many colours, each of them leading to a horde of imponderables, human or non-human, living and non-living. Other books by this author. Please visit your favourite ebook retailer to discover other books by Roy T. James, The Unsure Male, a bold, new look at the enigma of life that explains everything one needs to know. Cast the Unexplored Territories, a fresh look at the most perennial social problem in India. Glimpses of autobiography, a bunch of people, their impressions, and thoughts that would have found a place in his autobiography, had he wrote one. Hubs that provoke an oblique view of all that we consider as the most cherished values in life. Easy Route to Peace, a collection of essays proposing a few quick and easy ways to simplify the complex life we have made for ourselves. Homo Posterus, a science fiction novel.